A piece of reinforced concrete the size of a city block is going down into Pearl Harbor right now. It weighs 4,600 tons, the same as a fully loaded destroyer. Tugboats and winches guide it down through 50 feet of murky harbor water toward a prepared foundation, where it must land with millimeter precision. Miss that mark, and the most expensive single construction project in the history of the United States Navy starts with a structural defect that cannot be fixed. This 1 second on 50 feet of depth decides whether the American nuclear fleet can service its submarines in the Pacific for the next 150 years, whether 3,700 nuclear warheads, the ones hanging right now on ballistic missiles inside submarines scattered across 3 oceans, reach their targets if they are ever called upon. You pay for those warheads. You pay for those submarines. But there is something the country forgot to pay for: the buildings where those submarines get fixed. That oversight is now costing the fleet more than any enemy has ever taken by force. You cannot pour concrete underwater in a tidal harbor and expect it to hold the weight of a nuclear submarine. You cannot build inside a working shipyard without stopping maintenance. The fleet cannot afford to pause. Every standard engineering method breaks down at exactly the point where you need it most. The question this script will not answer until the very end: exactly how do you lower a 4,600-ton section to the right place, and what happens when it does not land? The program is called SIOP, the Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Program. $21 billion, more than the entire annual GDP of Iceland, spent on buildings and concrete and crane rails so that submarines can be fixed. 4 shipyards. A complete rebuild of the industrial base that keeps the American nuclear fleet alive. But to understand what is being built and why it is so hard, you first need to understand what these shipyards became over 200 years. Look at Norfolk, Virginia. Dry Dock Number 1, built between 1827 and 1834 from Massachusetts granite. Every block hand-cut, partly by enslaved workers hired from their owners at 72 cents per day. Confederate forces packed it with powder barrels in April 1861. The granite did not move. The explosion did not happen. The dock is now 192 years old. It still works. Its length is 319 feet, shorter than a city block. That means a Virginia-class submarine, 34 feet wide, 7,800 tons displacement. A nuclear reactor producing 40,000 shaft horsepower does not fully fit inside it. The submarine is longer than the dock, but that is not the main problem. The main problem is what happens when she goes in anyway. A dry dock is not a parking space. Think of it as a surgical operating table for a ship, one that cannot function unless every instrument, every power feed, every cooling line is already in the right position before the patient arrives. The submarine settles onto keel blocks, a precisely calculated row of supports under the hull. The entire hull opens. Reactor coolant circuits, torpedo tubes, hydraulic control surfaces, sonar arrays. Each system needs specific utility connections, electrical power at a specific voltage, chilled water, piping of the right diameter at the right position on the dock floor. A dry dock built in 1834 has none of this. Every time a submarine enters, engineers improvise. Temporary power cables run down the granite walls like ropes on a cliff face. Workers carry equipment by hand to positions the crane cannot reach, because at Portsmouth, the crane rails stop 12 feet short of where the crane needs to be. 12 feet. That gap costs days per availability. The Navy spent 2 decades trying small fixes. New cable runs here, a crane extension there, a shop consolidated, a utility rerouted. None of it closed the gap. The infrastructure was not underperforming. It was designed for a different machine, in a different century, for a different Navy. You cannot patch your way to a 21st century dry dock from an 1834 foundation. You have to rebuild. Virginia-class overhauls run an average of 9 months late. 9 months a submarine sits. 9 months it is not in the ocean. 9 months its crew lives in barracks instead of standing watch. In one recent year, total delay across the entire attack submarine force hit 7,700 days, enough for 21 submarines to sit idle for a full year each. 21 submarines, not in the water, in a queue. The queue does not stay at the shipyard. The Navy currently operates 49 attack submarines against a stated requirement for 66. 17 boats short. Every month a submarine spends in an overrun maintenance period is another month it is not holding position between Guam and the Taiwan Strait. China is building a naval fleet at a pace the world has not seen since World War II. In that race, the American fleet's single asymmetric advantage is nuclear attack submarines, vessels that operate invisibly for months inside any conflict zone. That advantage exists only while the submarines run. They run only while they are serviced on time. They are serviced on time only when the infrastructure allows it. Right now, it does not. That is where the real war starts. Go to Portsmouth, Maine. The shipyard sits on an island in the Piscataqua River since 1800, when John Adams signed the order and the fleet still ran on wooden frigates. The river here carries one of the strongest tidal currents on the entire East Coast. Divers can enter the water only in narrow tidal windows, with added safety lines, in water that stays at 41 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. To bring a submarine into Dry Dock 1, the shallowest of 3, required what the commanding officer calls a super-high astronomical tide. A coincidence of tidal maxima. Happens rarely. Even then, that was not enough. Even at peak tide, the submarine still sat too deep. Divers went in anyway. 41-degree water. They attached inflatable pontoons to the hull by hand to lift the submarine just enough to clear the dock threshold. If that tide fell at 2 in the morning in a sideways ice storm, the operation ran at 2 in the morning. The submarine was already late. The tide does not wait, and the Virginia class could not enter this dock at all. No tide, no pontoons, no geometry made it work. A new dock was needed, built from scratch, on an island, next to active production that could not stop for a single day. A standard solution does not exist here. On a normal construction site, you pour concrete into prepared forms on stable ground. Here, the ground is a riverbed. The current is fast enough to disrupt a controlled underwater pour. The controlled industrial area inside the shipyard is too constrained for the cranes required. The standard playbook is useless. So they built a casting factory in Brewer, Maine, 150 kilometers up the coast. 27 precast sections, each weighing up to 5,000 tons, as much as a World War II-era carrier hull stripped to bare steel. Cast in Brewer, loaded onto custom hydraulic skids, moved to a specially built gantry pier, then onto purpose-built barges transported along the Atlantic coast to the Piscataqua. The barge floods. Each section floats off the deck. Tugs and winches position it over the dock footprint. It descends. Workers pump tremie concrete, a specialized underwater curing mix, like a bone injection for submerged joints, through ports in the section walls to seal every gap and lock it permanently to the drilled shafts below. 25,000 cubic meters of underwater concrete, enough to fill 10 Olympic swimming pools, poured in complete darkness. One section at a time, 27 times. The first dock battle won. Now Pearl Harbor. The stakes are higher in Hawaii, and everything costs twice as much. Building anything on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean costs roughly double what the same work costs on the mainland. Every ton of steel, every bag of cement, every specialized tool comes by ship across 2,000 miles of open ocean. Dry Dock 3 at Pearl Harbor was built in 1942 in the pace of wartime construction. Not for the Virginia class. The floor cannot carry the load. The dimensions are wrong. Once the last Los Angeles-class boats retire, Dry Dock 3 becomes a concrete bathtub. Useless. Strategically, Pearl Harbor is the only repair base between the West Coast and the South China Sea. Every submarine holding the Pacific perimeter eventually comes here. Lose Virginia-class capacity at Pearl Harbor, and you have not lost a dry dock. You have opened a gap on a map that any Pacific adversary with a compass can find. So Dry Dock 5 is being built. 657 feet long, enough to dock 2 Virginia-class submarines end-to-end with room left over. Longer than the Washington Monument laid on its side, designed for 150 years of service. The design team raised the top deck 4 feet above the original drawings. Not because they miscalculated, because sea level rise projections for Pearl Harbor over 150 years show the original deck elevation will be underwater before the dock reaches half its design life. This dock is built once. No reconstruction in 2090. The decision is permanent. 9 precast floor units, each 4,600 tons, fabricated across the harbor on the Waipio Peninsula. floated across on a semi-submersible barge, sunk to the prepared floor through 50 feet of harbor water. All 9 units seated as of autumn 2025. Cofferdam walls rising. First submarine enters in January 2028. The first new dock at Pearl Harbor since 1943. Now the moment that explains why the entire program exists. Or rather, the moment that shows what happens when it did not. A pier in Norfolk, 2015. USS Boise, a Los Angeles-class attack submarine, returned from her last patrol and moored for scheduled maintenance. Standard procedure: enter dry dock, inspect the keel, begin overhaul. But the docks were full. Boise waited. In 2016, she lost certification for unrestricted operations. In 2017, she lost dive certification. She could no longer submerge. A combat submarine that launched Tomahawk missiles in the opening hours of the Iraq War in 2003 was tied to a pier. 1 year passed, then another, 5, 7, 9. The entire time, the hull sat in salt water without the corrosion protection applied only after a submarine is raised into a dry dock. The ocean worked the way it always works, quietly, without stopping. A millimeter a year into steel that no one could inspect because the submarine never came up. In 2025, when workers finally opened the keel track at Newport News, they smelled it before they saw it. The sharp iron reek of corrosion that had reached the structural spine. It ran the full length of the keel block row, every section compromised. $800 million spent, 22% complete. Finishing the job, another $1.9 billion. The result? A submarine with 20% of her service life remaining. The Chief of Naval Operations called it a dagger in the heart of the submarine force. 10 days ago, the Secretary of the Navy said the words, "Cut losses, walk away." USS Boise is being decommissioned. Not destroyed by an enemy, not worn out by age, killed by a Q. The Navy redirected every skilled worker and dollar freed from Boise toward Virginia-class production. The failure became the funding argument that forced Congress to accelerate SIOP. Boise could not be saved. But the case she made is now the reason the new docks are being built faster. 3 other yards, same race, different terrain. At Puget Sound in Washington State, where the Cascadia subduction zone runs offshore and the shipyard sits on fill, $377 million was awarded in September 2025 just to seismically reinforce the foundations under 3 existing dry docks. The goal: survive the next major Cascadia earthquake with a nuclear submarine inside, rather than producing a pile of fractured concrete around one. At Norfolk, Dry Dock 4, one of 3 docks built in 1919 during the World War I expansion, completed a $191 million renovation in 2024. That dock, built for pre-nuclear surface ships, is now certified for Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines and Virginia-class attack submarines. 34 parallel construction projects are active at Norfolk right now, surrounding working docks on an active shipyard, because servicing the fleet cannot stop, and every wall they open tells the same story. The 2018 program estimate was $21 billion. The Pearl Harbor estimate alone grew from $6.1 billion to $16 billion by 2022, when surveys opened walls not formally inspected in decades. Inside, pipes laid on top of pipes, unlabeled cables embedded in concrete, drainage designed for a different climate, structural elements patched since the Truman administration. Each opened wall adds to the bill. The final total is not yet known, because the buildings keep telling the truth about what they actually are. Dry Dock Number 1 at Norfolk is still standing, still working. The granite handcut in 1834 has not cracked. The Confederates could not blow it up. 2 centuries of Atlantic weather could not take it. The builders of 1834 did not know what they were building it for. What machines? What wars? What threats? They simply cut the margin deep enough to cover everything they could not foresee. The sections descending right now into the floor of Pearl Harbor, those same 4,600-ton blocks that tugs hold on winches through 50 feet of murky water, are being built for submarines that do not exist yet, for wars that have not been named, for threats that will appear in 2080 and 2120 and 2150. The open question from the beginning of this script has one answer left to give. How do you lower a 4,600-ton section to exactly the right place? You do it 1 centimeter at a time. Winches hold lateral position. Divers in 50 feet of cold, dark water feel the alignment with their hands and signal upward. The section lands. The tremie concrete locks it in place. Done once, it holds for 150 years. Done wrong, it holds for 150 years of the wrong shape. That precision, repeated 27 times in Maine, 9 times in Hawaii, across 4 shipyards and 40 simultaneous construction projects, is what determines how many submarines are in the ocean 50 years from now, rather than in a queue at a pier. The dock is not support infrastructure. It is the weapon. Subscribe. The next shipyard wall is already being opened. What they find inside it, no one knows yet.